So I just got back from Dearborn, Michigan, and being on the ground in Dearborn is quite revealing. I mean, surprising actually on the layout of the land and exactly what is going on in that community. As we all know, Dearborn has a very heavy Muslim population. The vast majority of them came in as refugees during the Obama administration. It's the same issues that we're facing up the Minnesota area right now with all the Somalis, where Obama brought all those in. Biden did some as well. And just carte blanche, just let everybody come into the country. The issues is there's no background checks, no discernment as to who was brought in, why they're brought in. Let's just give everybody a blank slate and let's just bring in all these immigrants and let them start voting in our elections. Let's give them a status here in the United States. And it's the same pattern that Democrats have been doing from the beginning, even with our Latino neighbors, bringing in all these illegal immigrants and trying to force a vote towards the Democratic side. As we know, all these Muslims, all the Somalis, they're all voting Democrat because they see the left as essentially as idiots because they're following hook, line, and sinker for everything that they're talking about. And that's the major issue is they're purposely trying to change the entire demographic here in the United States, bring us more socialistic. Obviously, a lot of the Muslim population has a completely different agenda. They want to bring in Sharia law, and they're doing it through socialism, as we see with Mamdani in New York. He's a socialist. He's a communistic socialist, and he is admittedly so. But he also, on the other side, is completely Sharia law. Now, it's more favorable for him to say that, look, I'm socialist or communistic than to say I support Sharia law. Shockingly, both of those should be absolute pariah in the media and throughout the public. Anytime we would think that someone would support socialism or communism, I mean, that used to be a big pariah, but now all of a sudden it's very accepting. Let's go towards that route. Let's be more accepting of that. Whereas Sharia law is pariah. Nobody wants that here in the United States as of yet, but they're still getting an incredible amount of sympathy, which is why Mamdani and others have gotten into office. Now, Dearborn has been in the office a lot the last few weeks and last month because of what's going on there, specifically with the mayor, the city council, not only the incident with the local resident where the mayor was actually shaming them, and I'm going to go into a lot of detail into that, so I'm not going to fully disclose that right now, as well as the call to prayer that's also going on in this community, and we're going to go a lot into that as well. So be sure to watch this full video because there's a lot of video I'm going to put out there. There's a lot that we're going to disclose. And it's very interesting how when I went from site to site, I got followed. And I'm sure they were trying to intimidate, which they didn't do a very good job of, but it's the effort that they put into it. They literally tried to intimidate. It's kind of funny. So we're going to get right into this. Now, I'm going to narrate all these videos that I took there in Dearborn so you can kind of have an explanation as we go along. A lot of it's going to be self-explanatory. So, again, make sure you watch this full video for the information that I divulge here from my trip to Dearborn, Michigan. Let's get started in front of the Islamic Center of America, which is the biggest mosque in the country. And I'm going to state that right here in this video. So let's go right to the videos. So right behind me there, you can see the Muslim Centers of America. It's the biggest mosque in Michigan. By far the biggest mosque in the country, period. It feeds well over 3,000 practitioners that go to this mosque. This is the famous mosque that's in the news media right now because 5 times a day they broadcast the call to prayer, which the local residents around here are complaining about that great news. We self-managed a noise ordinance problem. And this is where local residents have attended the city council, the town council here in Dearborn, Michigan, and I've talked to the mayor. Now, the problem is that every time they talk to the mayor essentially tells them just to take a hike.
New at 5, call to prayer controversies. Some Dearborn families speaking out now, and one mosque is responding. The outdoor calls to prayer can be heard on loudspeakers throughout Dearborn twice a day. The city has a vast Muslim population, and several mosques play calls to prayer for those families. That includes the Islamic Institute of Knowledge on Schaefer, which is now changing when and how loud they will play calls to prayer. 7 News Detroit reporter Ruta Al-Sinaida listening to community members' concerns and showing us the steps one mosque is taking to try and accommodate neighbors.
Here at the Islamic Institute of Knowledge on Schaefer, the call to prayer comes out twice a day through that loudspeaker up there for about 2 minutes. It's just one of the many mosques that follow this practice in the city, raising some concerns with residents. This is the sound the daily call to prayer Dearborn resident Andrea Unger says is something she personally does not want to listen to daily. She's brought this up at numerous city council meetings, including on October 7th.
Your freedom of religion does not allow you to force me to listen to your prayers in my yard or home when you could do this by your app or text or phone or email or inside your own walls.
Unger lives just blocks away from the Islamic Institute of Knowledge, and ever since they began work on this extension to their mosque about 2 years ago, she says the noise of the prayers has become too much. In the beginning, the mosque admits they did their first prayer around 5 a.m., but have since stopped.
The early morning prayers are, we understand that there might be some people concerned with those, but since these complaints came in, we took the proactive step in order to eliminate the morning prayer, just to make sure we're respectful to our community.
The Institute says they received 2 official complaints and have worked with the city to rectify them. But Andrea says it's not just them. She says there are many mosques in the city, including the Islamic Center of America off of Ford, who all participate. We looked into the city ordinance, which states that noise is not allowed to exceed 70 decibels in residential areas in the daytime and 60 at night. Additionally, loudspeakers are not permitted between 10 p.m. and 7 in the morning.
If we have or can identify a mosque that's doing it before 7 in the morning, or if there is an excess of the decibels, there'll be written a citation.
Dearborn Police Chief Issa Shaheen says he has been working with houses of worship to make sure they are in compliance, measuring decibel levels personally, hoping residents can come to terms with these short moments of prayer.
It's no different than church bells that you might hear on Sunday.
Dearborn is a beautiful thing. A lot of religions here being practiced, churches, mosques, synagogues. So it's a beautiful thing. That's what America is all about.
There is yet another city council meeting where residents say they will continue to bring attention to this. That's on Tuesday at 7 p.m. In Dearborn, I'm Ruta Al-Sinaida, 7 News Detroit.
Interesting how they say this might be concerning amongst the residents. I mean, nobody wants to listen to that on a daily basis. I mean, literally every single day to be listening to that. I can see why the residents would be more than just upset. That's quite annoying to have that. And she's very, very right. You can do it through an app. You can do it through text message. You can do it through email. You can just do it within the walls of your own building. Now, the officer there did try to compare it to church bells, but there's a big difference between a couple of dings that go on for 10, 12 seconds like a church bell does, and something that goes on for 20 minutes or 2 minutes every single day. The only reason why they're cutting back from the 5 prayers a day to 2 prayers a day, and specifically just cutting out or trying to just cut out the 5:30 a.m. one, is because of the notoriety, because of the press, because of what they're facing. They do not want to cut back. In fact, they do not think they have to. They are the dominant religion. I mean, that is their opinion, is you have to conform, you have to convert. This is what's happening to this country. They believe in jihad, and jihad is the entire world is going to convert whether you like it or not. Now, the big problem is a lot of them, and well, I can't say a lot of them. The big problem is this. We want to be tolerant. We want to have freedom of religion. We want to give them the benefit of the doubt. And I can understand that completely because we're good people. We want to give people the benefit of the doubt. But that is very deceptive. And we know for a fact that in their religion, they are allowed to lie as long as it promotes the cause. They do not, under any terms, want to back off. It is not in their nature, it is not in their religion to back off. Again, they understand that in this country, they can't force it on us. They can't force it on anybody else, even though that is exactly what they want to do. They want to be jihadists. They want to be very, very imposing. And if they thought they could get away with it, they would be incredibly violent right now. And just like they're doing in the Middle East, and enforcing that religion, and it's Sharia law or nothing. That's why that side of the world, that part of the world, it has been in turmoil for so many years. I mean, generations after generations after generations. And the big fight between Shia Muslims and others, where they amongst themselves have different standards of belief that they think they have the right to impose upon the other part of the population. And that's always been the fight, is between the Shia and the Sunnis. Now that they're spreading throughout Europe, this is getting worse and worse. And we've done several videos on this, that they're becoming very imposing and trying to take over government completely. And they're now becoming very, very outspoken that know that we want to have no-go zones where Sharia law is the law of the land. And they've tried to do that in a community down in Texas, and we've done a video on that community and how Governor Greg Abbott is trying to dispel that and get rid of that. He's passed laws getting rid of Sharia law. I'm going to cover that here in a couple of these videos. But we cannot be fooled at all. Their only goal is to make the rest of us convert, pay the jizya tax, or we die. I mean, that's the end goal. And again, a lot of people will pressure me and say, well, that's not all Muslims, that's only the extremists. That is not right. They all believe in Sharia law. They all believe in Sharia law. Now, it's to what extent they're willing to enforce it. Now, we do have that 30% or so extremists that really want to enforce it now by all means necessary, and we're seeing that happen again throughout Europe right now, and we're starting to see it in a few synagogues here, or not synagogues, but a few mosques here within the United States, particularly in Pennsylvania, and a couple of sites down in Texas, and massive amounts within Dearborn, Michigan, and up into Minnesota. But there's a large percentage of the population, I keep covering this, and I'm going to keep reiterating it, there's a good 50% of the population that will sit back and just let things happen. They will not defend the Constitution. They will not defend U.S. freedoms. If it came down to where their only choice was between Sharia law and the U.S. Constitution, they will openly choose Sharia law every single time. The U.S. Constitution is not important enough to them. It just isn't. So let's go back to this video and we'll show you what the rest of it is.
And this has become very popular, as it went viral a few weeks ago when a local resident approached them and says, look, we're not going to be renaming the street. And that's what they're doing, is renaming a lot of the streets. And they didn't like that they are doing a Muslim call to prayer. And then the mayor stood up and literally told that resident, you can take a hike. You're not welcome here anymore. I know you've lived here your whole life. I know you've participated in the community, but you're no longer welcome in this community. So that video, which I'm going to attach here too, is gone viral. And then recently, the mayor just doubled down greatly and said, look, I don't care. You're all going to take a hike.
I feel like having that sign up there, it's almost like having, naming a street Hezbollah Street or Hamas Street. I mean, Hezbollah, bombed the embassy in Beirut, and including many Americans. So I just feel it's quite inappropriate.
You are an Islamophobe. And although you live here, I want you to know as mayor, you are not welcome here. And the day you move out of the city will be the day that I launch a parade celebrating the fact that you moved out of the city, because you are not somebody who believes in coexistence.
Now, what you're looking at is Wednesday night's Dearborn City Council meeting, and it was a resident, Ted Burham, criticizing the sign. The mayor, Abdullah Hammoud, not holding back, saying it absolutely should have gone up. Now, that sign officials put up on Tuesday honoring Osama Siblani for his leadership and 40-plus years of work as a journalist. And we spoke with Siblani. He's a publisher and editor-in-chief of Arab American News, and he says he hadn't heard about that exchange. Someone else pointed it out to him, but nonetheless, he's just honored and humbled to be recognized for his work.
It's sad that we do not respect each other's, differences. And this is a great country. This is a nation of nations. I am American. I am from a Lebanese background, from an Arab background. I'm very proud of my culture and heritage, but also I love this country and what this country has done. Only in the United States you can come in 1976 with no money, one-way ticket, $185 in my pocket, and 50 years later, your name is on a street in America. Where does this happen? Where?
Again, you're looking at that sign right here at Chase and Warren.
No matter what that citizen believed in or thought who this Soblani is, the way the mayor treated him is unacceptable. That is absolutely unacceptable by a mayor of a major city, a politician who's leading these people. To literally say that I will celebrate the day that you move out, I'm going to put a parade up when you move out. You don't treat anybody like that in this country. That is unacceptable. Now, I don't know who this Soblani is. I mean, the news media over there is painting a great picture of this guy, that he's a media guy. Been in the media for a very, very long time. According to him, he came to this country in 1976 with only $185 in his pocket. I don't know what kind of man he is. I don't know if he's just saying what we want to hear, because what he said in that news report is exactly what we want to hear, that he came here in the United States to participate in the American dream, and he was able to achieve the American dream. He's got his name on a street, and he's been a great media person for years and years and years. But he also is the main media person for the Islamic Center of America. And we know for a fact, and there's video coming out of both the Islamic Center of America as well as the Knowledge Center on the other side, where there's open recruiting for terrorist organizations. And then there's open conversations within those buildings about how to get more Islamists in places of power, into political power, so they can literally, in their words, take over this country from within. That rhetoric, those conversations are happening in these centers that he's talking about. So I'm not judging Soblani. He could be a great person. He could not be a great person. He could be a great person in front of cameras and saying the right thing, and he could be a not so good person when he's inside the center and he's talking to only his people and have a completely different set of goals. I don't know. But what I do know is what is going on in these mosques is not always good. Now, you're going to have your practitioners there that visit those places that just want to practice religion and live and let live. But again, how many of those people are of that 50% group that, when given a choice, are going to choose Sharia law over the U.S. Constitution, are going to take away our freedoms, are not going to stand up or even fight for our freedoms, but rather fight against the U.S. if we were attacked by those nations, where they've sworn in as U.S. citizens. You've got congressional people like Ilhan Omar, who's sworn in as a politician to uphold the Constitution of the United States and to forfeit any allegiances whatsoever to any foreign government, any foreign entity, no matter what it is. I mean, that is not only the oath of citizenship, but that is the oath of office, that they have to forego any of that. They have to rescind any allegiances at all. And it's the U.S. Constitution, it's the U.S. freedoms first. Now, you can and do have the right to practice your religion, but how far would they go when given that choice? And I fully believe that the vast majority of them will not choose the U.S. Constitution. That if some spook reason there are Muslim forces coming to invade the United States of America, which probably is not going to happen. But if that were to happen, if for some reason Islamic countries were invading the United States and we went to these groups of people and asked them, you need to take up arms and help defend this country, they would not do it. It would be, no, we're going to take up arms against you because now we're forced with a decision between Sharia law and the U.S. Constitution, and we're choosing that. Now, again, I don't know if Sablani is one of those people, but we just don't know. We don't know who's coming into this country. I mean, let alone who's come across the border illegally from these Islamic countries, right along with all the Latin America that's come across the border. We know for a fact there's a lot of terrorists and terrorist organizations that have come across our southern border. But even in of that, we have a massive amounts of groups of people that Obama and Biden brought in just carte blanche with no background checks, no history, no investigation of any kind of what kind of people they are. And in the recent news, we're finding out very quickly what kind of people they are. With the massive amounts of fraud going up in Minnesota, and now all of a sudden other states are looking into it. We have major reports of fraud coming out of Pennsylvania now. We got major reports of fraud coming out of the Carolinas now. I'm sure Florida and Texas, these other nations or these other states are going to start looking into what's happening on with SNAP benefit fraud, that's because the vast majority of all of them, I think they're reporting 85% of all Somalis are on government assistance. They're not working. They're not supporting themselves. They're living off of the state. And there's reports coming out of Norway, Finland, Germany, France, Spain, the same thing. They've looked at those numbers, and anywhere from 55 to 80% of all Somalis that are refugees in all those European nations are the same thing. They're all on public welfare and public assistance programs. They're leeching off the rest of us and not supporting themselves. And that is wrong. And whoever made the decision, which we know was Obama and Biden, to bring that in without any background checks at all, makes the rest of us very nervous as what kind of people were brought into this country. What kind of enemies do we have within our own gates? And that is the issue. That is the problem. Now, I do want to point out one major comment that the mayor of Dearborn said. He said, you do not believe that we in coexistence. You do not believe that we can live together. Frankly, Mr. Mayor, you don't either. You don't believe it at all. Because I know you are a Sharia law guy. You believe in Sharia law, and Sharia law is you're going to convert, pay a tax, or you're going to die. Now, again, he's telling the world what we want to hear, and he's accusing this citizen of being Islamophobic when he himself, if he had the power to do so, would completely enforce Sharia law in Dearborn, Michigan. There would be no normal court systems. There wouldn't be no more normal police. It would be Sharia law in Dearborn, completely and utterly. Just like they're trying to do in certain sections of London right now, that mayor would implement Sharia law if he knew he could get away with it. So what he's saying here is diabolical. He should never say that to a citizen, particularly in his own city, but it is also an absolute lie. He's the very reason why this citizen is concerned, because he knows for a fact that this mayor, his mayor, would implement Sharia law if he had the chance. And the reason why they're pushing these calls to prayer, reason why they're trying to change the city streets is because they're trying to impose upon the rest of us. They're trying to be dominant. Now, I know that there was a push to name additional streets. So it wasn't just this one street that was named after this media guy that, for all appearances, could be a good person. But there was also a push to continue naming additional streets after jihadists, after conquerors, great Muslim conquerors that were genocidal. Now, we know for a fact that that has already occurred in the Muslim community down in Texas, where they've already named in that Muslim community all the city streets after great conquerors. They specifically put it into the building permit laws and the HOA laws that all those taxes and HOA fees are going to go and support the local mosque, which is how exactly they're going to force any Christians or Jewish people to stay out of their community, because they know for a fact these other religions aren't going to want to directly support the mosque. Dearborn is going to get worse and worse because they're going to push more and see exactly what they can get away with. They're going to pull back when they get the national media, the national attention, but that is the only time they're going to pull back. Because again, the final goal of this mayor in Dearborn and the city council is to push Sharia law. That is a goal, and they're going to try to seep it in there step by step, little by little, and see what they can get away with. So don't let this news report fool you, because it's a lie.
So that's what we're facing right now. So this is that famous mosque that's been in the news media for this long. Good. Yeah. Huh? The mosque. Yeah. I'll be gone in about 10 minutes. Okay, we'll be gone in about 10 minutes, for sure. I won't, no problems here. We'll be gone in less than 10 minutes. We're actually sitting in a parking lot of a Catholic church, so just off of the mosque there, and the local resident here is like, well, we don't want any problems with the mosque, so that I'm filming. But anyway, so this is the famous mosque. I don't know if I'm going to be able to stick around long enough to where you can hear the call to prayer, but they broadcast it out the loudspeakers, and it's pretty loud, and that's the common problem here. So what the big problem is throughout the country right now is Sharia law and the spread of Sharia law, and them trying to enforce their will upon the rights of the people, upon the Constitution. And they feel that Sharia law is superior to the Constitution. And as we said in many podcasts prior to this, when they're asked, what do you support more, the Constitution or Sharia law? The answer is Sharia law. I mean, you have that 20% of the Muslim population that are extremists, that it's convert, pay a tax, or die. And then you have 50% of the Muslim population that are just kind of mediocre about it and just want to let everybody live. But it's that portion of the people that when asked, if it came down to a choice between the Constitution of the United States and Sharia law, which one would you support? Which one would you uphold? And it is Sharia law, and that is the issue. Then you have the last 20% that just want to let people live, which is the good population of the Muslim community. But what we're trying to do is not infringe upon the right and freedom of religion, but the fact that they're trying to enforce Sharia law. That is just a simply hard no, dead stop. There's going to be no Sharia law in this country. And that's just the way it's got to be. And so we've got to have politicians that support that. And hopefully ban Sharia law. Governor Abbott down in Texas has done that, passed a law actually banning Sharia law. And it needs to be done throughout this country. You're free to practice your religion, you're free to do whatever it is you want to do about your religion, but you're not free to enforce it upon others. You can't enforce that. You can't force women to wear burqas if they choose not to. You can't threaten them with harm, death, or anything else because they don't want to wear burqas, and that's what I'm seeing a lot around Dearborn. I'm sure a lot of them are doing it voluntarily, but there's a lot of them that are deathly afraid of what would happen if they didn't wear it, and they're found out that they are of that faith and that it's enforced. There's local gas stations and other places around Dearborn that if it is run or owned by a Muslim, they get berated if they're selling alcohol or anything else. And obviously that's their choice, but it cannot be enforced, and that's the problem, is enforcing it upon others. So again, this is the Great America Mosque that here in Dearborn, Michigan. This is where all the hubbub's been about, and the local mayor, city council are all Muslim and trying to enforce this upon others. And just literally, it's not about the residents anymore. It's not about him supporting his people anymore, or what the Dearborn residents is. His priority is the mosque. His priority is the Muslim religion. And that's the problem. So live from Dearborn, Uriah Kennedy with God and Country Podcast.
So hey, I'm Uriah Kennedy with the God and Country Podcast. I'm still here in Dearborn, Michigan. This is the Islamic Knowledge Center. I'm actually doing this from my vehicle because it decided to snow all night last night. And it is raining right now, raining pretty good out there right now. So I'm not getting out there with this expensive equipment. But this is what we were just showing you on the news, that they put the call to prayer on the loudspeakers on the outside of the building 5 times a day. And according to the news report that we just put on here, it's now been down to 2 times a day, not 5 times a day, which is good. I mean, they're starting to bend a little bit and trying to keep the residents happy. But I think it's more of the national attention that this is getting than really they're trying to keep the local residents happy. This is the brand new building. I'll kind of roll down my window for a second here. That's the brand new building. And then they have the older building just to the left of it, which is over my head there. You're not going to see, but I took a video of it. Obviously, with the uproar they've had from the local residents and the national attention that this has been receiving, like I said, they've wound that down to just 2 times a day and not starting to call to prayer at 5:30 in the morning. But again, like I was saying at the Islamic Center of America yesterday, it comes down to Sharia law and trying to impose Sharia law upon others. They believe, I'm going to roll that up because it's kind of noisy out there as well. They really want to just kind of impose their religion upon others. I mean, it's kind of a forced thing when you go to the Middle East. Here, they're trying to conform a little bit to the rules and laws of the United States. I don't think that they're necessarily accustomed to these type of freedoms. So that's the big issue. Is they come from a world where this is forced upon everybody. You have to believe in a certain way, and if you not, it's physical harm, it's death, it's punishments, and they can't do those type of physical harm and punishments here within the United States. So they're trying to impose as much as possible. I mean, you'll see them purposely throughout Europe, here in New York and others, where they do their prayers like out on the streets. They take the rugs out there and do it out on the streets. And that is not because they have a lot of people or they're trying to protest. It's trying to show dominance, that we're the dominant religion, we're going to come and impose upon you, and since we can't necessarily enforce things right now, then that's what we're going to do. We're going to try to impose as much as possible. They're going to try to take over from within, meaning that they're trying to get more of their people within political posts, like mayor, city councils, congressional people. We can see what's going on up in Minnesota with the Somalis and how much money they've stolen and have filtered that to terrorist organizations over in the Middle East. And that is the end goal, because they do not care about the United States first. It is Somali first. It is the Islamic religion first. And when you come to the United States, you have to integrate. You have to integrate, and it's Constitution first. It's our freedoms first. So anybody that is within a political office that is not specifically saying it is the United States first, I am going to adhere to the oath of office that I swore into, they need to be taken out. I mean, look at Ilhan Omar. She is Somali first. She has never been United States first. The mayor here in Dearborn is Islamic first, and Constitution, the city second. And that's just the big issue that we have with a lot of these people that are running for political office. We're not trying to impose upon their freedom of religion, because we believe in freedom of religion wholeheartedly. I mean, as Christians, as Jews, we want everybody to believe however and what they may. The issue is within their specific religion, they believe in convert, pay a tax, or die. Now, again, they've
is simulated that somewhat when they get here to the United States and within other nations of Europe, just because of the pushback they're getting and the fear that they have of retribution. But it's because of the fear and not because they necessarily believe in the freedoms that we have. And we need people that come to this country that believe wholeheartedly in the freedoms that we have in this country. And it's the freedoms we have in this country over any type of belief that they can impose their religion upon others. Now, me being a Christian, I believe in God first and country second. But I'm not here trying to impose or force my Christianity upon others. I'm going to discuss it, talk about it, have a dialogue about it, try to share my feelings about it as much as possible. But that's the extent. I mean, we'll have a missionary type effort out there trying to talk to people and discuss things with people. But that's the extent of it. There's nothing beyond that. Whereas with the Muslim religion, it's more of an imposition. And that's where we draw the line. Well, the whole time I've been here in Dearborn doing these videos, I first stopped off at the grocery store that you're going to see on this video. And the second I started doing that, there was that vehicle that I'll show you here in a second that started going around me. And they went around me like 5 or 6 times. Now, I'm not necessarily going to use the video I created there because I think the other videos I've done are a little bit better. But it was within 30 seconds of being at that grocery store that they started going around me, literally just kind of doing the loop around the parking lot around me, literally like 6 times. It wasn't 1 or 2, it was like 6 times. And then when I was at the Islamic Centers of America, there was a security truck that literally started looping around the outside streets. And because I was on private property, I was actually in the Catholic Church parking lot. They couldn't come onto those grounds. They just kind of stayed outside, but they did at least 2 loops around me on purpose, and I could see them. You'll see it in the back end of that video. And now that I'm here, I'm literally across the street from the Knowledge Center in another parking lot of just I think it's like a bread store or something like that, a little corner store here. But now I've got a black Hummer on across the street from me here that's now done 2 loops around me. And they're parked here across the street, which it's interesting that the second you get video out, you're looking, I don't necessarily say suspicious, but it's not normal for a guy to be out here in a camera and a microphone. But it doesn't take more than a few seconds. And I haven't been here for more than 2 minutes. 2 minutes before that vehicle pulled up and parked literally across the street from me. So I'm going to pan over here and you'll see it. Anyway, I think that's just interesting how quickly they are to wonder what they're doing. And none of them are really did anything. They're just parking and looking and seeing what I'm doing because they know that I'm on public land or somebody else's property, so there's really not much they can do. They can't really get violent here in the United States, at least not like they can do in their home countries. And I believe that most of them are peaceful people that just want to live because I work with a lot of Muslims within my work. I deal with a lot of Muslim physicians in my normal job, and they're nice people. But then there's those that want to know what you're doing.
So I'm going to show the grocery store here in 2 seconds just so everybody can see that. But the interesting thing about that black SUV, and a lot of people were saying, well, how do you know he was following you? Because he did a loop right around me, went up the street, turned around in the street, came back and parked there, then came back around, did another loop around me, went up the little street, turned around and came back and parked it. They didn't even go out on the main road. It was just around that little parking lot, passing me up. up the street. I could see them turn around and come back and park me. Then they got so bad that another SUV, a little small SUV, pulled in and parked like right in front of me, like on the curb. So he's on the opposite curb from me, and there's another vehicle parked for a second right on the curb, right in front of my car, and it partially covered up the visibility between me and that Hummer. So you could barely see it. You'd have to kind of go to the side and kind of look around this vehicle. The guy dropped the window, stuck his head completely out and his arm, and started waving the SUV away, saying, "Get out of the way. You can't park there. Get out of the way." And he was adamant about it. I mean, he had his whole head and arm out of the vehicle. You could obviously tell he was a Middle Eastern guy until that vehicle moved, and he had a clear line of sight of my vehicle. So I know for a fact he was following me. I mean, he did 2 loops around me. And then the security vehicle there at the Islamic Center of America, there was 2 streets that he could go around because he couldn't get around into that Catholic parking lot. So he'd go up the one street where you saw that in the video, and went down right next to where I was parked at, would turn around because he had to turn around right there, else he'd go out on a main causeway, and then come back around and do it again. And then as I pulled out, he was right there, and I literally pulled right past him to get out on the main causeway. And then he pulled back into the mosque, and that was the last of it. So it's not me thinking that they're circling me. I know for a fact because of what they did, they were circling me. Now this one here at the store is even more egregious, and you're gonna laugh at it. So there's no sound in the background, so I'll kind of narrate it here as we go. So you'll see the vehicle right there that's circling me. Now I went into that grocery store. It's the Dearborn Fresh Market, and you'll see the Arabic right underneath that. The interesting thing about anywhere in Dearborn is all the stores have both English and Arabic. I mean, going down any street, you'll see all the stores in English and Arabic. It's a lot like going into like Little China in LA or Little China in New York. It's kind of a similar situation. So I'm not fighting against the culture. I just think it's interesting. But that black vehicle would go up around that little island right there, turn around down between these 2 cars, and then he'd drive down and you'll see him park. And he'd park there. At one point he got out of the vehicle and kind of looked out at me and then got back into the vehicle, and there was a passenger that just kind of stayed in the vehicle. Right here, in a second I'll pan over and you'll see him park. And he'll kind of back up a little bit too. You see him right there. And I don't know what they're trying to do, or I don't know how intimidating this really looks. But then he'd go around and park at that same spot again, then he'd do another loop up or right in front of my vehicle, around that little island between the 2 cars, and then park there for a few seconds. Then he'd do another loop and park for a few seconds. And he did this literally 6 times. No joke. And we were way back in this parking lot of these other office buildings, and there was a Islamic museum right there that I was sitting in front of. And it wasn't even necessarily the grocery store parking lot, but I think it was the Islamic museum and these other stores. There's a nail salon there, and there's a pizza joint there, and there's just joint parking for the strip mall that was right there. So it is a big parking lot. You can see it was mostly empty. Before I kind of parked there, I actually went into the grocery store. And I did the video that you're going to see here in a few seconds inside the grocery store, and then I came out in the back of the parking lot and did this one. Now, no one knows I was videoed in the grocery store, so this vehicle showed up the second I took the camera tripod out and set up the tripod and everything, and within seconds he was doing that, circling me. I mean, it was literally within seconds. He saw it and just started circling me. And it was just like over at the Islamic Center of America there. The second they saw that tripod out there, I mean, it was within a few minutes, someone had to inform them, hey, there's a car over there with a camera, and you saw that security truck started going around me. And then the Hummer had to have seen something within my vehicle because I didn't take the camera outside of the vehicle. But you could tell that there's a camera in there that I was talking and talking into a microphone. So he had to have driven by me, saw it, and just started looping there. So they're in the area. They were, I don't know if they're just passerbys and just wondering what I was doing, or they're actually surveilling their mosque, or whatever it is they're doing. I have no idea. But all three instances, it was within 30 seconds to a minute when I was circled by all three of them. And those are the only three places I went to. That is not coincidental. I mean, all three of them are miles from each other. They had to be 3-4 miles from each other. I'm driving a indistinctive rental car from a rental agency. So within seconds, all three places I'm getting looped around as a person of interest, a person who is very, very suspicious. That is not normal. People don't do that around Catholic churches or Protestant churches or anything else. That is not normal. It is only this specific group of people that would do something like that. And I can guarantee you that if I was any closer, or if I was actually on their property, they would have been out of those vehicles confronting me. I can guarantee it, because the SUV or the Hummer there, I could see it in his eyes as he was trying to shove that or shoo that other vehicle away. And he looked straight at me for a second, straight at me, right through my windshield. I'm like, oh yeah, what do you got to do? And then the other vehicles, as they got out of the vehicle, looked over his hood at me. So all instances, I know what's going on. And with the security guard parking outside of the Catholic parking lot there just for a brief few seconds and going on to come back there and parking there for a few seconds and coming back, it's all obvious that they were nervous as to what the camera is doing. No one else would care. I mean, obviously you get liberals that get in people's faces for videotaping stuff. That's all over TikTok and Instagram and all that kind of stuff. But it's very interesting how fast the reaction was when I got there. I mean, just incredibly quick. Not normal. That is purposely trying to be intimidating, even though the way they were doing wasn't intimidating at all. And again, I think if they thought they could get out of their vehicles and actually confront me, I know for a fact that they would have, but I don't think that they knew of. And the other part of it is I'm a 6'2" cowboy and intimidating somewhat myself when I'm out there, so I don't think they dared approach me, because they're probably 5'10" guys, maybe 180, 185 pounds. So not necessarily saying that they would fight or anything like that, but I can guarantee it would have gotten aggressive if they thought they could have gotten out of their vehicles. Going on with these other videos, we'll continue to narrate what I've got here. So again, I went inside the grocery store first, and what was surprising to me, instead of like a bank or like a Subway or a McDonald's being inside of the grocery store, it's a burqa store. Basically a little place that sells burqas right inside the store. I mean, if that's not intimidating to women, I don't know what is. But I keep saying that I know for a fact that the vast majority of these women, if they felt that they could get away with not wearing a burqa without fear of physical harm from either their husbands or fellow men within the community, I can guarantee that they wouldn't wear it. But you saw the burqa store, you saw 3 women there in burqas. You see this woman here, I was trying to nonchalantly video in the black burqa there, and you see them up and down the sidewalks all over there in Dearborn. You'll see them again here as I up at the cash register, and I got a couple items that I'm going to buy there. I'm very, very nonchalant in the kind of videotape because they really can't tell that my camera's on because it's kind of concealed. So it was very, very normal, and I was just kind of standing there waiting in line. The cashier there, full burqa, very, very young, as you can see, probably a teenager, and forced to wear a burqa there, and I can guarantee teenagers don't want to wear those things. And then you'll see another bagger here there at the end of that cashier, also looked like a very, very young teenager, maybe early 20s. Here I'm videotaping the meat section. Now, not that this is a big deal or anything like that, but I distinctly noticed that there is not a scrap of pork anywhere in that store. No, nowhere. Not anywhere. I just found that interesting.
Now, we do not want Sharia law here. We do not want anything that has anything to do with Sharia law. But yet that is what they're trying to enforce here in Dearborn, as well as up in Minnesota, and right now in other parts of New York and Pennsylvania. As we said many times before, there's actual teachings going on within a lot of the synagogues throughout Pennsylvania and here in Dearborn, where they're actually teaching young children in the elementary school level to say death to the infidel and actually teach them how to cut off the infidel's head. So not exactly what we want to be teaching here in the United States. So what we're trying to prove here is that even though we are a nation of freedom of religion and freedom of speech, there are certain limits to which we can allow. And one of those limits is the allowance of Sharia law. In fact, down in Texas, they've already created a law banning Sharia law throughout Texas. Now, we need to make that a national ban because there is no place here in the United States for those type of restrictions, for that type of imposing upon our freedoms. And that's what Sharia law is there to do, is to impose upon our freedoms. As we stated many times before, it's either you convert, you pay a tax, or you die. That is what the full practice of Sharia law is. Now, right across the street from me here, you're seeing the store, the Hijab store. You know, there's another one up here on the street corner. I'm going to show one here, actually inside of a grocery store where you buy your produce, another Hijab store. Now, that imposition upon women, where are all the protesters protesting the freedom for women? Where are all the protesters saying that this is not right? Where are all those blue-haired ladies?
I couldn't hold it in. I was kind of cackling. Where are all the protesters? Why aren't people protesting the hijabs and these burqas that are forced upon these women? Because you know it's forced upon them. Like I was just saying, I can guarantee if the women there knew for an absolute fact that they could not get harmed, smacked, kicked, hurt in any way by their husbands or any other men within their community, I can guarantee you that 95% would take those things off very, very, very quickly. But I guarantee that they live in fear because they live in a very close, tight-knit community, and they know the rules. And within their specific communities, they're enforcing Sharia law. I can guarantee they're enforcing it. Now, they're not killing anybody or stoning anybody yet or cutting off anybody's hands yet because they're within the United States. They probably couldn't get away with that. But there's a lot of other violence going on within homes and other places where they're intimidated, they're beaten, and forced to live in a certain way. Now, to have a hijab store there are several of them actually. I mean, within the grocery store, the one there on the street, and that was actually right across the street from the Dearborn Town Hall area, and there's a Peace Park right there. And there's another one up the street a little ways. But it's just surprising. I mean, it's a different culture, that's for sure. And I'm not bashing on different cultures because we have a lot of culture within the Chinese community, the Japanese community, the Latin community, the Asian community. There's a lot of cultures that blend here in the United States. But none of those cultures are trying to impose by force and by violence their culture and their religion upon others. And that is what's happening here, and you can't tell me it isn't, because that is exactly what their goal is. I'll say it again. This mayor in Dearborn would enforce Sharia law if he thought he could get away with it and disband all other constitutional laws. I guarantee he does not care about the U.S. Constitution or upholding it. All he wants is the mayoral power and to gain more and more power to help raise his community to the heights that they want. I mean, they want jihad. They want everybody to convert. It was interesting that I'll show you here on this picture right here, that as I was driving down the road, I saw this police car, and I happened to look in just to look at the driver. And I kind of did a double take because the driver was a woman in a full hijab. A police officer in a full hijab there at Dearborn. And I know that that's not abnormal. I was speaking to a few other residents, and a lot of the police force is now Muslim, which again is not a big deal. But I'm also hearing on the grapevine there amongst residents, and I'll show you a little bit later here a couple other people I spoke to, as well as throughout social media, that the police officers within Dearborn will treat their own culture completely differently than others. They'll try to enforce Sharia law when they know it's a fellow Muslim or fellow Middle Easterner, and then they'll try to enforce the real rules, the real constitution, when they know it's people that are not of their community. And I can guarantee they would love to enforce the rules differently if they knew they could get away with it. I mean, that's what it boils down to. And I don't know how much they're trying to force it, because again, like anybody else, there's only so far they could take it before it's obvious. But it's probably mostly verbal and in threats, that they would inform the local mosque or inform the local leadership of what's going on. I see it all over the place there. But just an interesting fact with that. And I tried to catch up to her and kind of get a picture inside the police vehicle, but I couldn't catch up to her. Now this I kind of want to show with the Islamist Center of America, that there's 4 churches right in a row there. So I don't know how well they're getting along, but I know that there's a lot of fear tactics going on, because as I was talking to that resident there at the Catholic church that's her down at the end of the street, she was afraid of the mosque, and having issues with the mosque. And we shouldn't have those fears. We shouldn't even be concerned with it. I mean, if someone's out there with a camera and a microphone, who cares? I mean, it's a free country. But she specifically referred to, I don't want problems with the mosque. We can't afford to have problems here with the mosque. What has happened in the past to stir that up? Because you know for a fact, to have her confront me like that, to have that little fear, and I could see it in her, that little fear, something had to have happened already or several times before that created a conflict between the different sects that are on that road. Because you have that community church, and then you have a Orthodox church, Catholic Orthodox church, and then you have the Muslim center, and then you have another Catholic church there. I'd love to know what happened in the past. What confrontations have happened between any of those churches and the mosque, and I can guarantee there has been some. And you can see the American flag up in front of the mosque, but I can tell for a fact that that's for publicity reasons, to show a specific image that they're trying to project of themselves, not that they actually care that they have the American flag on their property, because I can guarantee that they don't. I can guarantee that them posting that American flag is all image. That's all it is. But going back to all of them being right in a row there, I thought that was incredibly interesting. They're all right in a row there, but you know for a fact there's been some history. There's definitely been some history. I'd like to know what that is. So in this section here, so I went out behind the mosque to kind of just get some quick video of the residential area. So when the call to prayer goes out, you can kind of demonstrate who it is affecting. Just normal streets there in Dearborn, Michigan. I actually stopped and spoke to 2 residents. I have to admit, I spoke to a Latino guy from Mexico. I spoke to a local guy who was an immigrant from Africa somewhere, and asked them, have you heard the call to prayer? And they were both like, well, we don't hear it too much because we're in our jobs all day long, so it hasn't been too much of a bother to us. But they didn't deny that they haven't heard it. So I know as loud as those loudspeakers are, they are hearing it in that community. The interesting thing I did take note of is this community that I filmed is behind that mosque, but directly across the street to the front of the mosque is a very, very ritzy, gated community. So I know that more than likely most of the complaints about the call to prayer on a daily basis is probably coming from the gated community. They don't like what they're doing. They don't like hearing it. Whereas the poorer community behind it they should probably just tolerate it and live with it and don't think they can do anything about it. And there's probably a lot of Muslim people that are in there and they're neighbors with them, so they just don't say anything about it. Whereas the ritzy neighborhood is probably complaining about everything. So that is my little trip to Dearborn and what I encountered. In the end, it's going to get worse because they're going to push more and more for more status, higher status, and trying to get more control and more power. And they're going to do it from within our own rules. And they're going to try to dominate our political offices, our city councils, our mayoral offices. We got people like Ilhan Omar in there and Talib, I think is her name. We all know how violent they are. Ocasio-Cortez is a big supporter of socialism, communism, and Sharia law as well. She's a proponent of all this. So we've got some diabolical people on the left that, if they had the chance, would completely abolish the Constitution. I mean, Ocasio-Cortez, Talib, the rest of the squad, Ilhan Omar, they would crush and smash the Constitution underneath their feet if they had the chance to do so. And there's many, many more on the left that would do so, but they would smash and rebuild with socialism, because that's what they want, and they want a single-party state and absolute control. But then there's this contingent that want Sharia law. They want to enforce that upon others. And once they can get rid of the rest of us, the two of them would clash. This is a real problem. They are here to take over. That is what it is. They're here to outbreed us and take over. Now, again, many of us want to be tolerant, kind of live and let live, and no, it's not that bad. That's not their goal. I know a lot of really nice Muslim people. They're all good people. Granted, there's a lot of them that are going to live and let live until the day that they are given a choice where they have to decide, and the decision's not going to be on our side. It's just not. And they're going to stab their fellow friends and neighbors in the back when they decide to go towards Sharia law and not towards the U.S. Constitution. There's the tale of the snake in the desert, where the snake was pleading to this person, this man, that you need to help me, you need to save me. And the man, because I'm cold, I don't remember the whole story verbatim, but in the end of the story, the man took up the snake, took him into his bed, got him all warm and nice, and then the snake bit him. And the man asked the snake, "Why did you do that?" And the snake simply replies, "You know what I was before you grabbed me." And that's exactly what we're facing here. We know what they were before we let them in, before we let them take control of all these political offices and push step by step, slowly but surely, to get Sharia law implemented. Now, it's going to be really, really slow in the United States, not nearly as fast as what's happening over in Europe, because Europe, I don't know what's in their heads, but they're completely blind to it and just carte blanche, just letting whatever happens happen. And that's why they're taking over so quickly in Europe, particularly in England and France and Spain and Germany, just completely taken over. Now, we're going to have a lot of resistance here, but still not enough of what it's going to take to make sure that they do not have Sharia law's teeth put into anywhere in our society. Not a single community should have that. You can't have any outlying communities like Dearborn or these sites in Minnesota or this one city down in Texas. You got to get rid of it all. Now, again, I'm not picking on Muslims. I'm not Islamophobic. I could care less what religion you are. What I'm saying is this is a real goal, and there is a real push for Sharia law. There is a real push for jihad and for everybody to convert, pay a tax, the jizya tax, or die. That is real. It's not a phobia. It's not exaggerated. It's not us trying to foment violence or altercations in any way. We're simply pointing out what the real goal is and what their entire intentions are. And that's the good for honest truth. And don't let them deceive you otherwise. This is Uriah Kennedy from God and Country. We'll see you on the next video.